think we're streaming.
Oh, snap.
Hello. Hey, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to the Craft Parenting Podcast live on YouTube.
Isn't is that?
I guess this is a thing that we do now.
I guess it is, though this is way different from what we usually do.
We are,
Can people even see us, or are we just so backlit it doesn't matter?
I don't know. I'm going to take these off.
Tell us on the chat.
Well, welcome. We are the Craft Parenting Podcast. We are the podcast about two Cincinnati craft beer lovers with a parenting problem. And we are live on YouTube, so thank you for joining us.
And this is like Danger Zone live on YouTube because both kids are napping in not their bed.
That's right.
And we will see what happens. And we've got a lot of dogs. Some of them are smarter than others.
We have 4 dogs.
And one of which is not very bright.
We have 4 dogs, 2 kids, and whatever Jenna is.
I don't know.
I'm doing this very poorly. So we are going to be talking about...
Did we say who we are?
Well, my name is Joe Ludwig, and with me is my lovely wife and co-host, Caroline.
Hi. We're going to try to not do that thing again where we don't say what any of our names are until the very end.
Oh, yeah. But we are going to be talking about legendary beer brands.
Legendary to us, I guess. I don't know.
Well, these are some of our favorites. So most of these are Cincinnati-based.
Brands that are older than us.
Yeah. That's kind of what we've been. That's kind of the thought process behind this episode. Beer brands that are old, older than us, and still around today. And 3 out of the 4 of them are actually from Cincinnati, so that's kind of exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the first one?
So the first one we're going to talk about is Yuengling. Should we talk about what it is that we're drinking? Let me see the can, because usually we do that. So we are drinking a Yuengling traditional lager, an original amber beer, and it is, oh, do they not say on the can? I want to say like 4.6%, but that's just me pulling numbers out.
Something like that.
You can Google it, because I have a thing up. This does not say what it is. Which I guess they are allowed to do, because we've seen that a few times where they don't exactly say what the ABV is. But they have been around since 1829 and are officially recognized as America's oldest brewery, because they started in 1829 by D.G. Yuengling, where he was brewing Lord Chesterfield Ale and dark brewed porter, which continue to be brewed to this day. In 1831, as is wont to do with most brewing operations, at some point, they had a fire and their whole brewery was destroyed. So they made a new brewery on Manitongo Street in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, which is still the site of America's oldest brewery.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's...
So, kind of amber in color.
Mm-hmm. Get back to the beer. A little cloudy, a nice floofy head, though part of that is because of the way that Joe poured the beer.
I'm doing a lot. Okay.
You are doing a lot, and these dogs are much.
There's so much. They're based in Pennsylvania, like you said, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. And for whatever reason, they are a regional brewery. So
They are
technically craft, right?
Yes, they are craft brew.
Because the standard of craft is whatever Boston Beer does. So anything lower than what Boston Beer does is technically craft.
And they're still family owned.
Yes. So Yuengling is family owned. They're still operational, and they are regional.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, they expanded into Ohio in like 2011.
We were of
2012.
drinking age at that point, so it was probably like 12 or 13, like 2012 or 13.
I think I was working at Harris.
Possibly, so that would be probably 2012-ish.
2011. In Mason. So, yep. I think it was 2011, November 2011. They came to Ohio, even though we're right next to them.
Yes. So,
go ahead.
yeah, so they started off small. They officially turned into DG Yingling and Son in 1873. So after almost 50 years of operation, he finally put his sons on the name. And it was a long, long line of sons that were running the program until recently. So in 1895, they start offering bottles instead of just doing kegs, which was pretty cool. And in 1919, they were able to survive Prohibition because they made near beers. And in 1920, they constructed a dairy directly opposite of the brewery, and they made ice cream, which they brought back for a hot second.
Did they really?
Yeah. They did bring back ice cream for a hot second.
I don't remember. Like in Ohio? Did they bring it back to?
I don't know if it made it to Ohio, but I remember them advertising it.
Okay.
They're like, hey, it's that thing that we used to do because we couldn't make beer for a while. And in 1929, they celebrated 100 years of brewing because we're getting real close now, about 6-ish years away from their 200th anniversary. So that'll be really cool. They celebrated their 100th anniversary in 1929, though, but they were only producing near beer. But they had a Yingling Special, Juvo, Juvo, and a porter that they were brewing. So Juvo was a cereal beverage. According to the label, it's served cold, pure, wholesome, refreshing, satisfying. I have no idea what a cereal beverage is, but that's an interesting name for something. And they were very quick to celebrate the end of Prohibition. They produced...
I'm sure they were.
Yeah. They produced, quote, winter beer and shipped a truckload to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And the beer was delivered on December 5th, the day the 21st Amendment was ratified. So it might have been mildly illegal for them to make that beer.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think everyone knew that it was going to be ratified, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually laws, when you pass a law, usually there's like a buffer zone.
Yeah, and I have to remember I thought it wasn't until April, though, that people were able to start producing beer again. I don't quite remember from our Prohibition episode, though.
Yeah, I don't know that. I think by the time the Depression hit and, all that stuff was going on, I think the feds were a little bit busy.
A little bit.
So I don't think they necessarily cared because the culture shift.
Mm-hmm.
The culture shifted to, we can drink now.
Yeah. And then in 1954, they celebrated 125 years of brewing. And in 1960, they got a new brewmaster who created their Yingling traditional lager,
Okay.
which is what we are currently drinking. And so that this beer itself has only been around for a little over 60 years now, even though the brewery itself has been around for almost 200 years.
Yeah. It's good. This is one of my favorite chill beers, as they call it. And it is craft, but for whatever reason, they charge you domestic prices for it.
I'm not complaining about it.
No. Like if you go up to a bar, you have Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors, Yingling, at least in Ohio. And that's one level of price. And then if you want like a Boston beer or something local, that's like $7.
Hi, are you doing okay, girlfriend? You're just all anxious. And
Yeah, so we have 4 producers right now.
we do, and none of them are as chill as Clara. Maybe Vernie is.
I don't know.
I think Vernie's sleeping with Lily though, so they're fine.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
I don't know her. Okay.
So 1976, they're recognized as America's oldest brewery. And that's when they started putting it on their can, because the top of their can says America's oldest brewery. And then the fifth generation took over in 1985, and that's when things started to change, because they started to look at growing the business through efficiency of production and getting into distribution.
Okay.
So they so Yuengling, I jumped around on the timeline a bit. Yuengling Traditional Amber Lager has only been around since 1987.
Oh.
It's only 2 years older than you.
It's a good beer.
It is a good beer.
The thing about it is you can't really get anything other than the traditional Yuengling Light and Black and Tan.
Yes, those are usually the ones that we are able to find.
But they have a ton more varieties.
Yes. We could find an excuse to go out to Pennsylvania. I have a few excuses for us to go out to Pennsylvania, and maybe we could do a brewery tour.
What is your excuse?
Hershey,
Chrissy, no.
Philadelphia. We already did Philadelphia, but we could do Philadelphia with the kids.
That's so far away, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pottsville is it's not there very far.
Yeah. And so Yuengling has gone through a lot of transitions back and forth. So in 1996, they made the decision to just go straight back to local because they were unable to keep up with demand for their beer. So they actually pulled back distribution, which could potentially be like the last nail in the coffin for a business. But they managed to make through it, obviously, because we have some in front of us.
Yeah, they were local before it was, a big deal.
Yeah. So in 1998, they purchased a second brewery 3 miles from the original brewery so they could increase production. And in 1999, they purchased an additional brewery. So in the span of 2 years, they went from 1 brewery to 3 breweries. Yeah. Which led them able to super increase their production because this third brewery wasn't ready to start brewing until 2001. So it did take a few years to get it up and going. But then they started to expand their distribution and increase what beers they offered. Because you can also find Bock from time to time. Oktoberfest and a Summer Wheat are some of the ones that they advertise as being some of their bigger beers that came around in 2009.
Yeah, I have had their Oktoberfest.
Yes, we do drink a lot of their Oktoberfest.
But they have a couple that I follow them on Facebook and stuff, and they take pictures of beers that I've never even heard of.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you think about like Sam Adams, there's a lot of Sam Adams beers that we can get because we are right next to one of their breweries. But there's still a lot of Sam Adams beers that are hard for us to find unless if we go to the tap room. And then the tap
room is independent.
I know the tap room's independent, but
it's owned by them, but they brew independently, I think.
Yeah, because there was one year we couldn't even find the chocolate Bock. And that's my favorite.
I think they stopped making it.
I thought they still made it. Oh, no. Sam Adams, where's my chocolate Bock?
It used to be in the holiday variety pack. Mm-hmm. And that was the only way you could get it. But I haven't seen it in a few years.
We also stopped looking for it. I need to start looking for it again this year. I wonder if I could do a Christmas Bock episode.
Christmas Bock?
I feel like they're not the only ones that come out with a Bock beer in the wintry time.
Okay. Anything else about Yuengling?
So in 2014, the oldest surviving Yuengling son, Dick Yuengling, has 4 daughters who now are all working together at the brewery again. They've come and gone as it is to do with children in the family business. Some stay the whole time, some go away for a bit and then come back. So all 4 of his daughters are once again working at the brewery and getting ready to run the business. So that's gonna be super cool. And
Yeah, I saw an interview. It was all women, basically.
Yeah. Yes.
And they were drinking different beers in this interview.
Yeah. So 2019, they celebrated 190 years. And
they're coming up on 200, right?
They are coming up on 200, 2029. So they had commemorative cans and a bunch of events throughout the year. And in 2020, they have a joint venture with Molson Coors now. So it's to help increase their their distribution.
Yeah, and they opened a few years ago. They opened a I guess a second location, like a regional hub in Tampa, Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that was part of that.
So that's a joint venture with Coors.
Yes, with Molson Coors. So it's all Yuengling and Molson Coors family members and executives that are on that board. And so they broke ground in Tampa in 2020. And apparently they have a beer called Bongo Fizz, which is a fruit-flavored beer.
No way.
And now I really want to try it. Their description is, it's a premium beer made with a hint of natural mango flavor for a crisp, juicy, and refreshing taste. And they've just been slowly expanding out. They don't have Ohio on their timeline, but their most recent expansions were to Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma this year.
Yeah, they're taking over.
Yep, so now they're in 26 states.
That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't believe it took them that long to expand, but I guess they didn't really need to, right?
Yeah, well, when they only had one brew house up until like 20 years ago, not even 20 years ago, like 15 years ago, we'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they took their time.
Well, they're obviously successful at it, so don't change anything, Yuengling.
Yeah. Okay. So our next one, we're definitely not going to split because we don't need to.
I don't know if you can see that.
I mean, you can tell how tiny the bottle is.
Yeah, so these are one of my favorites, Little Kings. And this is a local beer to Cincinnati.
It is local to Cincinnati.
But it has a very long history, right?
So Shangling Brewing Company does, because they opened their doors in 1934.
Mm-hmm.
But Little King's cream ale didn't come around until 1958. So this beer is not as old as you might think that it is, like you being Joe.
I think that's pretty old. I mean, that was the age of the yellow fizzy beer.
It was.
And this is not yellow or fizzy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess it is fizzy. It's not yellow, though. This is like definitely different than what was being produced back then.
It is.
So, but you're right. I did think it was a little bit older than the 50s.
Yeah. So I might need to bounce around between stuff because I've got quite a few sources for this one of which is the Gnarly Gnome.
Who's that?
He's this guy that just drinks a bunch of craft beer in Cincinnati and occasionally writes and talks about it.
Okay.
He might have a podcast called the Cincy Brewcast. Maybe. It's pretty good to listen to.
You know what? I heard it was called the Cincinnati Brewcast.
And we drink. So the story is that Little King's was served at the Montgomery Inn, and it was a sidecar. So it was, you would come in, you would get your shot of bourbon, and you would have your chaser of beer, but it wouldn't be a full-size beer. It would be like a half beer, about 7 ounces.
Oh, yeah.
And in 1958, refrigeration was unreliable, and the fridge, the cooler that kept the draft beer cold, went out at Montgomery Inn, and it was a long while before they were going to be able to fix it. So, Ed Shangling, who sold a lot of the beer for Montgomery Inn, took the Shangling Cream Ale and put it in 7-ounce bottles, which was actually his wife's idea. To like, so we can't keep it in the keg cooler, but we can keep it in the other cooler.
Yeah.
So it stays nice and cool. And then the bottles just kind of took off. And out of all of the mid-century Cincinnati beer brands, so all the stuff that was around in the 1950s between Hootapole, Burger, and Moerlein, it was the only one that gained a national presence. So the other beers post-Prohibition mostly stayed in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But Little Kings was all over the place.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't realize that it was national.
It was, because it's actually, there's actually a lot of people that are like, where did my Little Kings go, that aren't just Cincinnatians?
That's really cool.
And then they slowly brought it back. So, in 1987, Shingling bought Hootapole. And then in 1997, the Boston Beer Company bought the Central Park facility, but not the brands. So it bought so 1997, that's when Boston Beer bought the big brewery in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But they didn't buy any of the brands that had been brewed there. And so Little Kings kept brewing in Cincinnati until 2001, when production moved to Frederick, Maryland. And then in 2004, Greg Hardman launched Christian Moerlein and began to bring Cincinnati beers back into town.
Yeah, that was a decade plus venture.
It was.
Yeah.
And if you go to the Montgomery Inn, at one point a few years ago, Hardman teamed up with Molly Wellman, who is a well-known bartender in Cincinnati, to figure out which bourbon would pair best with Little Kings. That must have been terrible research.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Molly is a bartender, and, well, she's more than that. She's a mixologist.
Yes. We have one of her books, but we have made 0 drinks from it, and I need to look at that book again.
But she owns Japs, right?
Or she owns, or that's where she works.
She definitely works there. But,
yeah.
So she's like you said, a famous mixologist, which apparently is a thing.
Yeah. So Greg brought production back to Cincinnati, though it took a while. And I'm not sure if production is still happening in Cincinnati or not.
Oh, yeah.
Because Little King's production has moved all over the dang place.
It was in Pennsylvania, and then he brought it back to Ohio.
This does say brewed and bottled by the Hootapole Shangling Brewing Company, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45202.
Yeah, I think Little Kings is in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And I would say this. I do love draft beer. My second favorite is bottled beer.
Mm-hmm.
However, if given the opportunity...
And you were given the opportunity.
Between Little Kings on draft and Little Kings on bottles, hands down, Little Kings on bottles.
Yeah, because we were at the Lager House, the Christian Moerlein Lager House downtown, for a Reds game. And so we decided we're going to leave the Reds game. We're going to go to the Lager House. And they had Little Kings on draft. And I was like, oh, Joe, are you going to get that? And he was like, no. Only bottles. There are only bottles.
Were you sticking with Moerlein or Wiedemann?
Oh, I didn't know that we had to. We can do... we can stick with Christian Moerlein.
Anything else about Little Kings?
It's delicious. I'm super glad it's back. They changed their packaging, though, so it's harder for me to find because I'm used to looking for the green boxes.
It's not green.
And now it's black and white.
Or it's black.
Yeah.
Well, it's either black or really dark blue.
It's black.
Because you're right. I was in Kroger the other day, and I was just looking to see what they had. Holy moly, our Kroger, it's like all seltzer.
I know.
It's
I mean,
ridiculous.
'tis the season.
It's ridiculous. I don't want seltzer. But I did see Little Kings.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a 24-pack, though.
What?
Well,
Wait. We have a button for that.
That's like insane shit.
Yeah.
That one works, too. What? With little Tony in the background.
Yeah, I couldn't.
It was very hard to get clean buttons from that episode.
But yeah, I think it was like a 16 pack maybe.
That's interesting. I mean, I'd still buy it. So if that's my only option for Little Kings.
It didn't seem big enough for a 24 pack.
Yeah.
So I don't think I saw a number to it, but it didn't seem like it was big enough.
Yeah. And so like there are not many beers that I'm like, hey, Joe, we're almost out of this. Should I go pick up more when I'm at the store? But Little Kings is one of those beers where I'm like, hey, Joe, we're almost out of this. Do I need to go pick up more at the store? Usually in the wintertime, though. I don't know. For me, it's more of a wintertime drink, but that's also because, like, that's when you get together with your family.
Ah, here we go.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I mean, they say that we need to drink it all year round. So.
It's strange because it's definitely a summer. It's supposed to be a summer beer, I guess, because it's creamy. It's light. It's delicious. I know it is delicious. And however, we always drink it at Christmas.
We do. But I mean, we also go through like 2 or 3 cases of it.
Yeah, back in the day, we did.
Before everybody had lots of children.
Yeah, maybe that was the reason. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, so Little Kings is 5.5% ABV. We never really said that. It's delicious.
It's in a green bottle, and it's only 7 ounces.
Yeah.
So we call them little killers.
Yes, and one of their claims to fame, quote unquote, is that you can finish your beer before it has a chance to get warm because it's so small. But now we're going to drink you read the can.
So I'm really excited about this. This one. This is the Christian Moorline Brewing Company lager. And it says on the can, established 1853, which is true. It was established back, that long ago. A traditional lager brewed with malted barley, noble hops, and pure water, true to the German Reinheitsgebot. It is 4.9%. This is extremely smooth.
It is so smooth.
It's very crisp. It's very, it's everything that I want a lager to be.
Yeah, it's gold. It's clear. I can see Joe's face through it.
It is so good.
It's got a white floofy head.
And I love this beer. However, the brand, it still confuses me.
Yeah, and we can talk about that a little bit. We'll get there.
But this beer is fantastic.
Yeah, so this brand started with Christian Moorline, who was born in Truppach, Bavaria, and immigrated to Cincinnati, Ohio in 1841. He settled in over the Rhine, where he worked as a blacksmith, which is some detail that the new old people who own Moorline really fixated on. So, like many German immigrants, he brought his love of beer and began brewing. So he made some really hearty European brews out of his blacksmith shop. Let's super focus on the blacksmith aspect of this brewer's life. They grew from a side business to the largest brewery in Ohio and the 5th largest in the country. And in 1890, so much beer was made and consumed in Cincinnati that we were known as the beer capital of the world.
Yeah, Christian Moorline did all that. That's what people were drinking.
Yeah, so they had,
for the most part,
they had like 5 huge buildings downtown, one of which was like the workers' houses, because that was back when you could house your workers and they were mildly or actually were indentured servants. But between the workers' house, the brewery, the ice house, the kegging and the bottling, they had a lot of real estate in downtown Cincinnati.
And a lot of it, Rheingeist purchased.
Yes, Rheingeist did purchase a lot of that real estate.
I think Rheingeist purchased the bottling plant. I'm sure they have more than just that building, but I don't know.
They have expanded onto that build. Like they have
Did
expanded.
they purchase it or did they lease it? I don't know.
Hopefully at this point they've purchased it, but I don't know.
Northern Row is above the tunnels.
Yes. And we do have tickets for the brewery tour that we need to schedule at some point.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So not only was Christian Moorline shipping beer across the country, but it was exported as far as Europe and South America.
Yeah.
Cincinnatians were not drinking enough of it, or they were making so much that it was more than what Cincinnatians needed.
Yeah. Or I don't know. Has anyone compared to how much we drink today to how much we drink back then?
I don't think so, but I did see a few, like every year they come out with like the most friendly sports teams and the sports teams fans who drink the most. And like,
I know. Right?
This year the Reds came out as on top for most friendly sports fans. Like out of the MLB, they came out as like the most friendly fans.
Okay.
Which I can get. But usually we're in like the top 5 between MLB and NFL for fans who drink the most. I don't have any of those numbers in front of me right now.
Okay.
If you feel more inclined to look into it, you can look into it.
No, I think we need to talk about this beer.
Yes. So though the brewery continued to operate after Christian Moorline passed away, the prohibition came and they closed down. They did not survive. They made a near beer, but it didn't work. So they ended up shutting down through prohibition. But in 1981, the Christian Moorline Select Lager was reintroduced.
Yeah.
And it was on the leading edge of the craft beer revolution, per their website.
Oh, yeah.
But then the brand changed many times up until 2004 when Greg Hardman brought it back to Cincinnati.
Now, was Christian Moorline at all affiliated with Shailene Buck or Shailene?
So I'm pretty sure, and I can look this up. I think on my other
Hudipole Shailene. That's what I was trying.
Yeah, Hudipole Shailene. And if I go to wikipedia.org, which is just a website that focuses on craft beer things.
Oh yeah. I've heard of that.
If my link wants to work. We got new phones. They're very confusing. Oh no. So in 1981 they were revived by the Hudipole Brewing Company. So Hudipole, I think, purchased them, or all the brands ended up together in about 1981. Because a lot of Cincinnati brands ended up in Greg Hardman's hands in 2004.
Okay, well,
because he purchased Christian Moorline as well as 65 other historic Cincinnati brands.
Really?
Yes. And I don't remember where it was.
I didn't know we had 65 historic brands.
So I don't remember where it listed all of them, but there was like one of them was like Red Top. It was something that I had. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So Top Hat, Hauk, and Windischlick Mulhauser are other brands that he purchased, and I had not heard of any of those.
Okay.
But that's how he ended up with Hudipole, Hootie Delight, Hootie 14K Burger, and Little Kings.
Yeah.
Along with Christian Moorline.
We definitely could have.
We can just do a Greg Hardman episode. Ooh, we should try to do that.
Yeah. We definitely could have expanded our horizon with all the different beers, because there's a lot of like quote legendary beers, Hudipole especially. However, I don't think you can buy Hudipole anymore.
It's very hard to find. I think maybe the Hootie 14K.
You can still buy Hootie Delight, I think.
Which is the 14K.
Oh, is it the same?
Yeah.
Okay. I think according to the interview didn't the Gnarly Gnome interview them?
He did.
The new owners, I think they're focusing on Little Kings and Hootie Delight.
Which Little Kings is a very big brand. And it makes sense to focus on that because it was the one that had the most reach. And if I'm recalling correctly, what their plan was to get Little Kings back to where it used to be available. And then use Little Kings to help them get their other brands out there. So we're going to send you a case of this other beer in addition to these 5 cases of Little Kings or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they can just kind of go on the back of those licenses that they already have to help expand their distribution.
Yeah, she has no chill.
Chrissy has 0 chill. We literally left her alone for 5 minutes and she destroyed a pair of children's sunglasses.
Well,
I mean, hopefully she didn't eat any of it, but I don't know.
I don't know if you can hear that. That's what's going on in the background.
You probably can.
But
Let me chug this beer while you say up your finishing thoughts on Christian Moorline.
finishing thoughts. So the brand has unfortunately been diluted.
It's gone through some changes that aren't
It's gone
necessarily
through some
for
changes,
the
which
better.
which that's business. Businesses come and go.
And the pandemic made
owners-
things hard on a lot of people.
Owners come and go. This is separate from the Lager House, which is it's kind of hard for me to understand.
It's-
The Lager House is this, but the distribution is separate.
It's mildly like Sam Adams, where the tap room at First Sam Adams can make their own beer that has almost 0% to do with Sam Adams the brand. Whereas Sam Adams the brand makes stuff for major distribution. But what's really
I think
weird,
Sam Adams the brand owns the tap room,
but yeah,
they
Sam Adams
brew.
the brand is very much involved with Sam Adams the tap room, versus when there was this major shift with the Moorline brand, the tap room stayed the same. So the tap room did get in. So like the tap room did change some of their branding because like those major core beers are the new branding, the stuff that they don't brew in house, but all of their stuff that they brew in house has stayed exactly the same.
Yeah, so I don't think you will find, or you might, I don't know, they might purchase it,
Yeah, I mean, 'cause-
just like anyone else can purchase, distributed beer. But this beer, I don't think you'll find at the Lager House. At least it won't be affiliated with the Lager House.
Yeah, and like you can listen to the Brew Skies Happy Hour podcast to get opinions on changing things with beers and how that can help or hurt your brand. Because their most recent episode, as of this recording, they talked about changes that had been made to a brand where, well, we slowly made changes to the beer and nobody really noticed. But then we kept the beer the same and we changed the packaging, and all of a sudden I have all of these complaints that the beer has changed. Moorline kind of did both at the same time. They changed the flavor a bit and they changed the packaging and the branding, and it became very confusing because of, instead of calling things like a lager, they went with blacksmith names like, this beer is Smithy. I'm like, I don't know what that means. That means nothing to me. So they very much went with we used to be owned by a blacksmith. Let's super focus on that blacksmith aspect of that and call everything an aspect of blacksmithing as much as we can.
I mean, it definitely differentiated them, but I don't know that I care. I didn't really connect the man Christian Moorline to the beer, Like, you know what I mean? I didn't connect him as a blacksmith. Like, I don't care that he was a blacksmith.
Yeah, and like they
I
changed
care-
it back because
I care that he was a brewer. Right?
on their R beer, they only have 2 year-round beers listed. They have their lager and they have their Hefeweizen, which is a seasonal. So they have a year-round lager and a seasonal Hefeweizen. And I'm not sure.
I'm sure they'll do an Oktoberfest.
I'm sure they will too. It looks like we can get it at the Kroger Marketplace that is around the corner from us. But I wanted to see if they had other beers listed on there. I guess we'll see how this brand continues to do. Historically, they've done well, but that was also pre-prohibition.
Well, they did well. They were the first one. Like, they were one of the first, ones in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Like they were, so there was Rivertown, there was Christian Moorline, there was Mount Carmel, Listerman.
Mm-hmm.
Like those were the early ones.
Yeah. Even though they didn't have, so they finally got the Moorline tap room in 2012.
Yeah, but before that, they
were contract brewing. So they were getting beers brewed other places.
they
but
brewed, yeah.
Greg's vision was always to have the beer brewed in Cincinnati. And we could just specifically do like a Greg Hardman based episode.
I bet we could.
We might be able to get a hold of him too.
Yeah.
We can ask around.
We could ask around. But we have one more beer left. And,
Yes, we do.
this is the lighter beer. I really hope that's not my kid crying.
Both of our kids are able to exit the rooms that they are in and end up banging on the door. So I'm not worried about
Like
them.
a zombie.
Yeah.
Let me out.
Where am I? I'm so confused.
They should know where they are.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if I have the heart to tell your mom. You might have to be the one that tells your mom that Elliot will no longer nap in a crib.
Well, I bet she
Might be able to get him to nap in the crib.
Yeah. Like,
But-
he hasn't napped in a crib for us for probably
About a year.
over a year or something.
Well, so it's new
Si-
house.
six-
New house. So like 6-ish plus months.
6 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once we moved into the new house, he was very much anti-crib because Lily figured out how to get out of the crib. And
So did he, I thought.
well, so let me finish. So Lily figured out how to get out of the crib, but we like managed to convince her that she couldn't get out of the crib, so she forgot that she knew how to get out of the crib. Elliot did not forget and was very stubborn about being able to get out of that crib. So it was just like, yep, okay, crib is gone, mattress in bed.
So
Here you go.
And then we made Lily sleep in a pack and play.
Okay, so
And Elliot figured out how to climb out of the pack and play.
yeah. Well, no, so Lily slept in the pack and play because she wouldn't sleep in the toddler bed, and I was not going to buy another crib. I was very adamant I was not buying a second crib. So Lily might have slept in the crib longer if we had purchased another crib, but I was like, homegirl, you're 18 months. You got a baby brother. You're sleeping in the toddler bed for naps. You can sleep in your crib for bedtime, but I am not buying a second crib. That was all me.
But Elliot climbed out of the pack and play.
Yeah, he can climb out of anything,
But he's shorter than her.
but he is determined and loves to climb.
That is true.
So,
All
yeah.
right, so let's talk about this final beer.
Yeah, we are currently drinking a Wiedemann's Fine Beer, a Bohemian Special Brew Golden Pilsner. And I can't read the ABV because you moved the can.
Oh,
You can read the ABV. It's right by it's at the bottom. So no, turn. Down, bottom, 12 fluid ounces.
it is a solid 5%.
Okay, 5%. So Wiedemann is an old brand that, so we've talked about this before on the podcast, but it was like the stupidest, one of these more stupid decisions. Maybe it's not the stupidest, one of the more stupid decisions that has been made by people that we know. So at some
Do tell.
point for the Donauschwaben, the opportunity was presented to have a booth at the Cincy Beer Fest in Duke Energy Center. And at the time,
Hi.
we were raffling off a TV so people could go to Europe or something like that. And we were looking to up our reservations to try to increase that portion of our organization. And so somebody said, yeah, sure, we'll do a booth. So we had a table at Cincy Beer Fest, and we worked the booth 2 nights with our friend Mac, who has been on the podcast before, who at the time was on crutches. And because we had no idea what Cincy Beer Fest was like, because none of us had been there before.
It was in the very early stages of Cincinnati Beer Fest.
It was the early stages of Cincy Beer Fest.
It was either the second or third year or something like that.
Yeah, it hadn't been around for very long. We were presented with the question of, hey, do you want to bring this giant TV with you? Now, it was relatively giant because it was able to fit in Joe's car if we put the seats down. This TV with you, so you can like put the TV in the back of the booth to show like, hey, this is what we're raffling off, and you can sell beer tickets, or you can sell raffle tickets for this thing. You get free admittance into the event. You get a punch card of tickets so you can get some beers. We got shirts because we volunteered. I think like the shirt said "We'll work for beer," and I crossed mine out and wrote "Run for beer" one year when we started doing all of our beer events. And we maybe sold 10 raffle tickets between the 2 nights we were there. I don't even know if we sold any raffle tickets because it was just a bunch of people walking up to us saying, I'll take whatever you've got that's really good. And then having to explain to people that no, we do not in fact have any beer, but we can talk to you about rentals. Or do you want to buy a ticket for a TV raffle?
It was not a good idea. I don't think we brought the TV in.
We did not bring the TV in. We left the TV in the car because we were like, well, let's go inside, see what the situation is, and then decide whether or not we would bring in the TV. And it was very good that we did that. The TV stayed in Joe's car the entire weekend. There was 0 point to bring it. It was before we got engaged, and I ended up grabbing an engagement ring that we had hanging around our house as like a, hey, this is your grandma's ring, sticking it on my finger and like waving it around to every guy that came up to our booth. But they were all so drunk they didn't notice because half to 3/4 of them would start hitting on me right off the bat because I was in a dirndl. And I'm like, hey, no, what? Let me talk to you about all these events that we have as I'm like shoving this ring in their face and they are too oblivious to see it. So long story short, right next to us was this beer brand that was going to be revived, and they had their company's jingle on a CD player.
Yes.
And played that jingle like every 10 minutes. And
on a loop.
And I am surprised that it is not seared into my brain. Like, I'm sure if I heard it, it would be seared into my brain. But like that weekend was so crazy bonkers that I mostly just remember like handing my cup over to them every once in a while to get a refill of beer.
You know what? This is probably what we were drinking.
It probably was what we were drinking because it's like,
or
hey,
a version of it, at least.
Yeah, like we can go wander away and try to find something, but at least somebody has to stay in the booth. Though at that point, probably nobody had to stay in the booth.
I think we brought merchandise, like pins and stuff.
I don't think we did. Maybe we brought like business cards. I don't know. That was so long ago.
It was, I don't know why we did that.
We did it for the beer. I mean, there was that.
I mean, that helped for sure.
We were in college. Beer and a t-shirt. You can get us to do almost anything.
Yeah. I don't know that it was a good idea. I don't think they asked us back.
We did not go back. They might have asked us back the next year, and we said, like, I think we told them like Saturday, like, because I think it was Friday night and Saturday night. Because it was before there was the 2 days on Saturday and like the super long.
Like the 2 sessions.
Yeah, it was before there were so many sessions.
Yeah.
We told him like that first night, like, yeah, we'll go back tomorrow, but there is like 0 point in us ever attending this event again. And I think it was Tom and She there. Tom and She might have been there like in their early days. Because somebody had a glazed donut grilled cheese and we never got it. But we were like, why would you do that?
I know. Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
Mm-hmm.
There was food and stuff.
Yeah. People with pretzel necklaces, which I was like, well, if we're going to do this next year, we might as well sell pretzel necklaces. But no.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we could have done food.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could have done like pastries or something. But
yeah, so we hung out with the Wiedemann people. And I wish I would have retained more about that than I did. But I do remember they were saying they were getting their beer contract brewed. They were looking to find land or find a place to have a brewery.
I thought they said at that point they were looking in northern Kentucky.
They were probably looking in northern Kentucky because,
this was
spoilers, Wiedemann Brewery was located in northern Kentucky.
Yes.
So
that's where they were originally located. Yep.
Like most people in Cincinnati pre-1900, Wiedemann was born in Essex, Germany in 1833. He came to the United States as a young man in 1954, first finding work in the brewery industry in New York, Louisville, and Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He moved to Newport, Kentucky in 1870, where he founded the George Wiedemann Brewing Company, which became Kentucky's largest brewery. I'm mostly reading off of this continuing craft beer website, Wikipedia.
Okay.
And they promoted themselves as, quote, America's only registered beer, end quote. I don't know what that means, though.
Registered?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. And they often used humorous radio commercials. I think, fortunately, they did not have the humorous radio commercials anymore. But there was a jingle, and I might have to look that up in a minute.
Yeah.
He had 6 kids with his wife, Agnes. And he passed away in 1890. But the business was continued to be operated by his sons, George Jr. and Charles. But then Wikipedia goes blank for about 100 years. So I'm assuming it continued to be a thing. Because it merged with G. Heilman Brewing Company in 1967 and was operated as its own division, where their primary brands were Wiedemann Fine Beer, which is what we're drinking now, Royal Amber Beer, and Blatt's Beer / Cream Ale, and then a few labels that were from the Heilman Brewing Company. But the brewery closed in 1983. And it was sold and brewed by the Pittsburgh Brewing Company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania until 2007, when the brand finally was dropped.
Okay.
And then in 2012, a Newport, Kentucky company reestablished the brand and started brewing Wiedemann Special Lager as a small batch craft beer. And then they bought all of the recipe, logo, and intellectual rights. So John Newberry bought all that stuff. And then in 2018...
He was a journalist, right?
Yes, he was a journalist. And in 2018, him and his wife Betsy purchased an old funeral home. And after years of renovating, they were able to open up the Wiedemann Tap Room in St. Bernard.
Yes.
Which has really yummy food.
They have really yummy food. They have it does have I guess a funeral home feel. Mm-hmm. I guess they brew like...
It must be in the basement, yeah.
Yeah. That's where... but yeah, it has like it has a very separated
it's lots of little rooms.
Lots of little rooms
And if you hear funeral home and then you go there, you're like, oh yeah, I can totally see that.
But they have a deck. They have a very nice outside area.
Mm-hmm. But it's more for the aspect of you go to a funeral home and they've got multiple little rooms or that can be turned into one giant room.
Yeah.
Because the place is stacked with memorabilia.
Yeah, he was he collected this stuff over the years.
They've got lights, they've got cans, they've got signs. Almost anything you can think of that ever had a Wiedemann logo slapped on it, they have.
Basically, yeah, it's very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
The Wiedemann Tap Room. And the beer is good.
It's very good.
The Golden Pilsner, I don't think is my favorite of theirs. It's really good though. They have a bunch of varieties.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good. Very good beer. Very good food. They usually have live music.
Yep, because the last time we were there, they had a nice band that was getting ready to set up.
It's very well done, tap house.
Mm-hmm. So their current brewers are Steve and John, who create innovative, tasty, and refreshing beers that aren't limited to strict adherence to industry style guidelines. And Whatever your preference in beer styles, you'll find something, probably quite a few things, to like among their diverse and always changing lineup of lagers and ales. We don't try to please everyone with every beer, but with 42 taps coming your way, we know you'll find something that you can get enough of. As Steve likes to say, his best beer is still to come, so come along for the ride. Per their website.
Oh yeah. And we met the brewer.
Yes, we did.
Or one of the brewers.
Mm-hmm.
At a recording of Truth, Beer, and Consequences.
Yep.
Um,
It's one of the now, because he's... Was that John? No.
I don't remember his name. I'm sorry.
I'd have to look it up now.
You could probably look it up.
because-
You could probably look it up. I'm sure it's somewhere. Let's see. Let's see if I can get to this jingle.
They did not include the names of the people that talked to them. Ah.
Wiedemann fills the bubbles with flavor, live flavor. Only Wiedemann fills the bubbles with flavor, live flavor. It's the greatest taste secret you'll find.
I don't know that this is it.
Wiedemann fills the bubbles with flavor, live flavor.
I'm not sure either, but
In the bubble, Wiedemann.
it wouldn't surprise me if it was.
Only Wiedemann fills the bubbles with flavor, live flavor.
Maybe it is then.
It might be, because it's the same thing. We are about to have a friend on the podcast. One of the children is up.
Oh man. All right. So, is there anything else you want to say about Wiedemann?
No, I mean, it's really good beer. This is like the tip of the iceberg of what they do. They have lots of things available. So if beer flavored light beer is not your thing, they've got tons of other stuff around.
Yeah.
Hey, homegirl.
Stay right there. Thank you.
Can you close the door, please, girlfriend?
Thank you.
Okay, so you can find me on @CarolineCreatesCrafts on Instagram if you're so inclined to do that. We are at Craft Parenting Podcast on most of your social medias, which includes Twitter now, apparently.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.
You are at Craft Parenting Joe,
I am.
and we are back to having a parenting problem. So we're going to go take care of that. Thanks for joining us.
And we will talk to you soon.
Bye.